So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with both local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Kate Hainsworth, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Leeds Community Foundation. So firstly, Kate, thanks for spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and LCF and the wonderful things you do, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Chris, and what a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. So my name's Kate Hainsworth. I'm Chief Exec, as you say, at Leeds Community Foundation, Give Bradford. So we are a community foundation, which is a thing. So there are community foundations all over the world, and our job is always to do a very, very similar thing. Which is to provide a vehicle for local philanthropy in the geographic area that we serve, and also to give out whatever money is raised well to the local community. So it does mean we have to get very, very close and well integrated both into the communities that we are keen to support and invest in, and we also need to be very close to business and to individuals who are prepared to give back. So it's a real privilege actually to sit across these two areas of work. And the only sort of missing link in that is the public sector. Well, actually, we work with the public sector too. So it's a great job, because it means that you're very closely connected to an awful lot of what's happening in your locality. I'm born and bred in Leeds. It really matters to me how people in Leeds thrive, and I'm delighted to say I have colleagues who are leading on the Bradford work who are equally impassioned about their locality. And so it's a real exciting opportunity to be able to work with people really closely in terms of their philanthropic journey, and then to steer, guide, support them in ensuring how their money is invested is done in a really sensitive and authentic way for the localities concerned. Because, you know, I know a lot of people think that giving money away must be a really nice and easy job, but a lot of checks and protections. So the whole being able to support across the whole piece is as I say, a real privilege.
Wonderful. No, I'm sure it must sounds very funny to say, I guess, but it must be quite difficult to get it right, and it's so important that you get it right, because
absolutely,
you know,
yeah,
it's a limited resource. I know I'm sure you want to do the best for everybody. And if we start, maybe Kate, we just think a little bit about your background and you know how you came to become CEO.
Yeah, well, I suppose my journey to this place has been quite winding, but maybe that's the perfect preparation, because I suppose what I was talking about in terms of the various different stakeholders in the process means that having quite a varied career history helps. So I actually began in life in the theatre. I ran a little theatre company. I then joined an oil company, and so worked with Total Oil for quite a number of years. Very big industrial organisation. Taught me a lot, certainly taught me a lot in terms of management training as well, and then went into marketing. So I specialised in marketing with a business-to-business marketing agency that worked primarily in actually in the industrial area that I'd been working in with Total. Gave me some very much needed marketing basics and background. And then moved over back into the arts, and I was chief exec of an arts organisation, and I've had various arts roles throughout my career, but some of them working with sort of with Opera North, so with people who are very familiar with philanthropy and who had a particular understanding of what philanthropy means. And then also with Theatre Royal Wakefield, which is kind of different end of the spectrum in terms of an organisation and the kind of support that you can garner around an arts organisation like that. And I suppose it was that background that really brought me to the foundation, because I started out here 8 years ago as the development director, and that was very much about bringing the money in. So it was very much focusing on the philanthropy side.
Yes.
And it was certainly quite an eye-opener to me when I joined, because I didn't really know that community foundations existed, if I'm honest. I hadn't got the kind of experience or understanding of quite how ambitious and sophisticated is the community sector. The community sector is so sophisticated and creative.
Yes.
So it was it was as CEO.
Brilliant. And is this what, you know, looking back from a child, is this the sort of thing you saw yourself doing eventually, or did you have a different path planned as you grew up?
I did not have a clue. I really did not have a clue. I think when I was a kid, I had all sorts of dreams. But I think I was going to be an archaeologist. Actually, that's what I thought I was going to be. I actually studied Greek and Latin and things like that. So that was my initial passion. But I think I've always from being very young recognized that there's always in any walk of life, there are those people who are able to progress very quickly, not entirely down to merit, and there's a series of hurdles for people who perhaps have one or two challenges, and whether those challenges are socially applied, through prejudice, or they're actually physical challenges, or there's a whole range of potential hurdles that anyone who isn't seen as mainstream needs to navigate. And I think from very, very early on, that's been something that's really concerned me. My granddad was somebody who was a very bright, clever man, and who ended up in a series of very manual jobs that really ground him down. And he was somebody I cared about a lot. And it always felt to me that his life was, he wasn't really given the chance to shine. And I think that's something that I've taken with me in each of my roles. So I suppose if there is a guiding light through them from childhood, it is probably my granddad.
Lovely, absolutely lovely. And sort of, as you're looking back over the last 8 years or so, what would you say are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome?
Oh wow, where do you begin? I mean, it's been the same for everybody I know. But obviously, as you'd understand, when a pandemic hits, it's the groups that we are supporting who feel it first, really. So it felt like we needed to adapt very, very quickly to be able to support the groups that we support in a different way, as they had become first responders, basically, and support the emergency services in a community context. If I could just describe a little bit what the community organisations are.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people get a sense of, well, what is a community? I know I did. Yes. Who are these groups? Where do you find them, and what do they do, and why don't I know about them?
Yeah.
But the point is, they are under the radar. To people who benefit from them, so they tend to be incredibly localized, and some have been going a really long time, some are perhaps newer a new initiative when somebody recognises something needs to be done. But coming from a community, and that community could be a group of older people getting together for a lunch, or it could be a set of parents who recognise there's no facilities for their kids to play. You know, the park is full of needles, and they need somewhere clean to play, or it may be a group who share a common interest, or actually a set of challenges in common. Mental health is one, and so on. So it's a whole range of activity, and the joy of working for a community foundation is we serve them all. Basically, any group that's in our patch who would benefit and provide community benefit is eligible to get money from the foundation, and that does cover a lot of things. The only thing it doesn't cover is animals, I should clarify. We don't look after animals on their own, animals with humans, so there's a lovely group called Think Like a Pony, and that really supports young people who find it difficult communicating with people, but actually communicate really well with ponies and horses. That is fine, we do support that. But not pure animal charities, but pretty much everything else. So it's a massive cross section of work. So as you can imagine, when something like a global pandemic hits and the world gets locked down, the best people to support the most vulnerable in our society are those groups that have worked with them day in, day out for years, or who are extremely close to them. And so our job was really to pivot the way we operated. Not that it was miles away from doing this anyway, but less so. We had a slightly more arm's length process that involved running grants programs on a particular theme. Well, we were able during the pandemic to persuade our donors to pool their resources into resilience, and really we focused on making sure that these groups stayed alive, stayed open, and didn't furlough. That was the biggest worry that we had, was that these groups would furlough their staff and shut down, and that absolute lifeline would close for a lot of the people who need it. So we were working like crackers in 2020 to help people stay open, and thankfully that worked. We were quick enough out of the blocks doing that, so it meant people had the confidence that they were getting money to keep organizations that maybe had a little trading operation, you know, a little shop, or maybe they had a room rental income. All of that stopped straight away. So all of their business models that had been carefully sort of crafted with very small sums just went in a moment. So trying to work with those groups to think through, what can our business model be now? How can we operate both during lockdown and beyond? And so obviously we're at the beyond lockdown stage now, and we're working really closely with many hundreds of those organizations to help them see the wood for the trees, and focus on ensuring that they can survive and thrive in this new arrangement. So it's a very intense period that we've gone through.
Goodness. I mean, I can see, you know, how you described that, how that would have been challenging, and clearly to keep the organisations you support, as you say, open for business and not furlough must have been really important. When you look at your sort of whole career, but especially at the foundation, what do you say some of the biggest learnings you have about developing organisations and businesses, Kate?
I think one of my I don't think this is unique to the community sector at all, but how important individual leaders are. If you think about it, a lot of the groups that we support are very like small businesses. They are often they're startups,
Yes.
and need exactly the same kind of support that any startup does. Some of them are long-term SMEs and on the S side of the small.
Yes.
And all the same issues that come with running a small business in terms of motivation and where do you delegate the work when you're really tiny. So a lot of the guidance and support, if you like, that we've been able to wrap around our funding support is just trying to keep those individuals resilient in themselves, because they are the linchpin so often of how a business can survive. But also realism around things like your cash flow. Cash flow is always the issue. You know, small businesses, we know this. It's not at all necessarily an innovation, but perhaps people don't realize how important it is also for community and charitable organizations as much as a commercial one. Clearly charities have other issues that they've also got to bear in mind, but sometimes that's advantageous. So if they're able to use volunteers well, that can really help those businesses. A lot of the businesses who are keen to support us and thereby these groups, you know, so quite often they would like to offer volunteer time as part of the package. Right. So our main function is brokering the money, as you can imagine, but sometimes a business would like to offer time because they've made a commitment to their staff to release 2 days a year or something in terms of volunteer time, and obviously that's a really generous and a wonderful offer, but you can tell there's a but there coming. I think sometimes that offer isn't really perfectly aligned with where that organization is, and if it were a day a week for a whole year, that would be really valuable, but that's obviously not feasible for an awful lot of those organizations. So I think sometimes our job is around trying to manage expectations both ways. Manage expectations from business's point of view is that, that's a brilliant offer, but actually how can it be used and used effectively, because otherwise you can end up with a slight a difference of expectation in terms of the delivery of it, and then it doesn't serve anyone if it goes wrong. So there's a slight detour there, but
it makes a lot of sense. And funny enough, I previously worked while I was still an action coach, we worked with a social enterprise called Smart Aid, which purpose was to link businesses to social enterprises and a mix of skills. So rather than, a bunch of lawyers going and clearing some land or something,
painting a fence,
let's get them to do some legal work, because that's what could be massively valuable to an organization.
Absolutely.
It was that matchup that was really was really useful.
Absolutely. And it's a constant, I think the joy of working with community organisations is how creative they are, because they're constantly reinventing ways to benefit their beneficiaries, but also to make the most of what they have, and make it go that bit further. And that's, I think that's a lesson to any business is, keep hungry. Hungry for sales, hungry for development, but also hungry for a kind of way of developing, which is maybe not necessarily off the shelf that you just buy. You know, sometimes it's great to see the kind of creative thinking that goes into how people use their space, how they maximize all the assets they have. And I think that's sometimes there's a lot of lessons that we can all take from how charities
absolutely
work.
Yeah, I think, you know, necessity breeds innovation, doesn't it? It's absolutely, you know, really important that that organizations use their assets as you know, as well as they can, because they are limited ultimately.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, that's the same for us as well. You know, in terms of the funds that we can raise, it's limited, and it will never ever meet the total demand that comes in. But our effort all the time is to try and avoid people wasting their time. So we try to ensure that the grants programs that are available are crafted in such a way that not every single charity or organization will apply for them, because simply that there isn't enough, that, you know, there aren't enough funds. And what we don't want to do is have people spending time, wasting time, applying for things that it's just not going to work. So that's a big part of the programs team job, is to work very closely with groups and steer them towards the kind of most appropriate grants and opportunities for them. But it's always, you know, so there's that side of it. And then on the flip side, we're also working all the time to try and ensure we are uber accessible. Sorry, that's probably a word I shouldn't use now, but anyway, there's probably a brand in there, but anyway, but as accessible as we possibly can be, so that the groups that don't necessarily know about us already feel, well, actually I can apply, there is a chance for me too, because there always is. And that's very important to us, to ensure that we are as equitable as we possibly can be.
Brilliant. And Kate, you're probably aware we're a business coaching organisation, so we do a lot of coaching with people. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's organisations, businesses, sports, life in general.
Well, that's a really good question. I think we've had some fantastic coaching, which has been very generously donated to us as an organisation, and I will name some names. So somebody called Jackie Harper worked with us doing some coaching one-to-one with our team, and that was hugely beneficial for us in the sense that her, as a broker, we are in the middle quite often, and it's great when we're able to say yes to people and give some money, but quite often we do have to say no, and unfortunately that comes with pushback sometimes, understandably, and so on. So it's not, as I say, it's not as easy giving money out as you might think. And sometimes can be quite stressful. So we were very grateful to Jackie for some coaching of individuals within the team. We also worked with Cheryl, who was our with neurodiversity, and that was a really helpful piece of work that took us, it made us walk in the shoes of somebody who is neurodiverse and who has I mean, maybe afterwards I can send you the links to some of these sites. Please. And then that would be I'd love to share it, because I think, you know, the kind of training we got there was really valuable. And then last year we worked with Impact Culture to help us on our diversity, equity and inclusion journey. It's something we've worked on very intentionally, really, for the last 5 years. Trying to ensure that our DEI is embedded across everything we do, which is you know, once you start to live and breathe it, you realize it's very it's really fundamental. I think,
Yes.
you know, it's not that we weren't doing things before, but it was slightly more surface than what we've been doing, and impact culture has have helped us with our understanding of that and building our plan accordingly. So
wonderful.
But you know, and I think you get inspired by all sorts of individuals, don't you? And you know, I pay absolute tribute to my colleagues here who are complete inspiration to me. And over the years, there's been a number of colleagues been and gone, and they were inspirational too. So I've taken a huge amount of learning from the team here. I'm relatively long in the tooth, so I've worked in quite a number of other organisations, and you know, along the way I've had some really inspirational colleagues and bosses, if you like. But yeah, I think the joy of having worked in a number of places is that you get a chance to take all the good bits of the people that you've worked with, and create a composite version in yourself, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just drawing those things that make a difference at the time, and it's not the whole of one thing or one person. It's just the bits.
That's right.
Yeah. And have you developed any, or do you use any favourite quotes or sayings on a regular basis that you might fall back on in good times or challenging ones?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. I guess my favourite saying is just do it. Yeah, fill in the blanks as
Absolutely.
But just do it. I think I'm probably guilty of it as much as anybody. I like to talk. I like the sound of my own voice. But at the end of the day, unless you do something, nothing really changes. So yeah, I guess my mantra is let's roll up our sleeves and get busy. And
Brilliant.
especially when you're working in this kind of area where quite often there are people, you know, for whatever reason, there quite often are people, you know, feeling either threatened by what you're doing or wanting you to put your energy in a different place. And I think you just have to keep sticking at it.
Yes. I think you talked about resilience a bit earlier, you know, that resilience of keeping going and you know, the vision and the mission being the most important thing, getting, you know, pushing through.
Absolutely. I think you can end up, you know, spending a lot of your week talking or in meetings and various things, and those things have to happen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they don't, but I like to feel like we are actually doing the work, and it's that gives me the greatest pleasure.
Yeah, there's absolutely. It's a combination of both, isn't it? We've got to have that vision and dream, but we've got to take action, and without it, you know we're not going to get anywhere. So it's so key. And Kate, what would you say you've learned about yourself through your journey?
Well, I think somewhat what I said to you before about recognizing a common thread. I think certainly in my 20s, I felt very cross with myself that I didn't have a very focused vision of the type of career I should have and you know, be able to settle to it.
Yes.
But I suppose I've become more forgiving of that side of myself in realizing that there is a thread through what I do, and it is just trying to get people connected to opportunity.
Yep.
I find it so frustrating that we still in 2023 live in a world where even in England, UK, this part of Europe, there are kids born a couple of miles away from here whose life expectancy is substantially lower than people born a different couple of miles away, and you know, people who are through their gender or their identification or their ethnic background or their age are excluded from opportunity, and well, that sort of sounds very sweeping and grand, and of course that's not me, but it just feels to me that that's what I've been trying to do. When I worked in the oil industry, you know, I was the only female who wasn't a secretary on the oil refinery that I worked at, and those things live with you, you know. And a chance to contribute their skills and brilliance to the world. And yeah, it matters to me that people get a chance to thrive at whatever stage of life they're at. So I'm really proud we've been able to work with the fantastic digital sector in Leeds around digital inclusion. Great. which is around ensuring people have access to equipment and bandwidth, but also some support in really opening up their lives. And you know, I met a couple of them last week, and you know, they're in their 80s, and they've had a great deal of concern about bank log-ons and medical appointments and so on, because of course that's the way the world has gone now, and they've been really disadvantaged by that move, but now they're getting some support in being able to do that safely, and really important for people to be given those chances. Brilliant.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. So looking forward, what does the future look like for you guys, and what are the main challenges you face, if any?
There's loads of challenges, actually, Chris. I mean, I think the future has elements of optimism, which I'm really focusing on hard, because it's been quite a rocky road the last few years, and those sort of sunny uplands are to do with how people realized during the emergency the kind of role that community plays, and what life is worth living for, and that is to do with people and connections, and understanding that we don't want to live in a society where people are forgotten and left behind. And that I think is a marvelous aspect of our culture, and so I focus on that really hard. I think what does happen in an emergency is that people tend to quite naturally focus inwards. You do, you know, you want to make sure your family is safe, your firm is safe, and you know, that's a very natural response. And it's absolutely right that people do that. But I think there's those sort of fears have they've continued, and so certainly on the philanthropy side, I mean, we've seen it nationally, we've seen it globally. There's been a reduction in philanthropy, and I think you know, I hope that we'll start to come out of that as people feel a little bit more reassured that things are going to get better. So security, stability, these are very good things, just as they are for business. You know, just to get people back into a sense of being in control, and then they are in a position to think about their neighbours and think about where they live, and people around them positively. So that's what I'm looking forward to. It's a challenge to get us there, but you know, I've got a fantastic set of folk here who are working their socks off. So, you know, we'll do our best.
Brilliant. Yeah, I can imagine that the what's happened over the last few years, that you know, people have a natural desire for a level of stability, and if there's instability, then we tend to look inwardly rather than outwardly, and that's, I guess, is going to be a challenge for you guys from a philanthropic position. Absolutely.
I mean, it's just like, you know, in business, you do get a bit risk averse, don't you, when stuff feels very wobbly, and that's, it's not necessarily that it's a risk, but it's a discretionary spend rather than a necessary spend, and so, you know, we absolutely understand that, but hopefully we can get the message out there that while it's discretionary, it's also incredibly rewarding, both in terms of your message to staff as a business, to be able to say that you are committed to your locality. So it's a very positive message for retention of staff and so on. So it does have business benefits too, but it's also just an amazing sort of learning tool as well. If we get it right, there's a connection between an organisation that's very grassroots and a business that happens to be headquartered somewhere or has you know, employs a lot of staff from somewhere. Actually, there's a lovely connection and relationship there, because it means a lot when you can give back to where you live and where you work. It's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kate, I'd be interested to know what advice you give to anyone that was thinking of starting a business right now.
Do it. Just do it.
I thought you might say that.
I mean, you know, it's there's always going to be people saying, oh, you know, maybe not, maybe don't, etc. But we need businesses, just like we need people. We need people to have that to jump in and make stuff work. And I think, especially across the north, we're really good at that. You know, we're really good at making stuff happen, and with all kinds of stuff against us, we still make it happen, and we make it happen in a way that brings people with us. And I think I'd just say, do it. Brilliant.
And finally, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so?
Oh goodness, that's a good one. There's an awful lot. There's an awful big world out there, and go explore, I think, is what I would say to my 18-year-old self. I think I'd, you know, as many teenagers are, you're very sort of self-obsessed. I certainly was, and you know, only knew what I knew, and I've been lucky enough to meet a whole range of people, to live and work abroad and explore, and I think that's, you know, that's a great advice to young people, is just keep being curious. Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, Kate, thank you so much for your time. It's been really fascinating and entertaining, and it's, you know, the great things you're doing is just wonderful. And if anyone watching would like to get in touch with you or the foundation, what would be the best way to do so? So our website is leedscf.org.uk. There's ways of getting in touch on there, and hopefully a whole set of links to the kind of work that we do. Right. But love to hear from people. Yeah, kate@leedscf.org.uk. Wonderful. Well, it'd be great to come back at some point and just catch up with you and see how things are developing and what's going on. And I know you've passed through a lot of funds to date, and I'm sure that great work will continue to happen. So again, thanks so much for your time. That is a pleasure. Thanks so much, Chris, for yours. Thank you.